Hi there, David Nason here. I hope you are doing well. I wanted to do a quick video outlining the European Accessibility Act, what it is, who it's for, why you might need to be interested in it. You may have heard of the EAA as it is known, but not be sure exactly what it's all about. So I just thought this would be a useful video to do. So the European Accessibility Act, or EAA, as I said, it came into force here in Ireland and across the EU on the 28th of June 2025. It covers digital accessibility for a range of products. But when I say digital accessibility, I'm not just talking about websites and apps, although they are included, but it also can be involving hardware products as well that we use to interact with products and services. So it is very wide ranging. I'll speak in a few moments a little bit more about the range of products and services that are in scope for the EAA. It is the most wide-ranging law of this type that we've ever had in the EU. In previous years, we've had, laws around accessibility for public sector, so government websites and that kind of thing. But we haven't had anything certainly this wide-ranging affecting the private sector before. And that's really, really key to this, is that businesses need to be aware of the EAA and need to be compliant with its standards. So what does it do? Well, it aims to improve access to everyday products and services for disabled people or people with disabilities, whichever phrasing you prefer, and older people across the EU. There is, though, a benefit for businesses too. I would always be an advocate for the fact that accessibility is the right thing to do anyway, and it's good business sense anyway. But this also now gives businesses a clear set of standards that they can apply and that they need to apply. And those are harmonized right across the EU. So whichever market you're selling into, the same set of rules will apply. So there's definite benefits there for businesses as well. You might be watching this from the UK, from Canada, from the US, or somewhere else that's not in the EU and wondering, do I need to worry about this? Do I need to care? And the answer essentially depends on your business, but yes, if you sell into an EU market. So the location of your business is not what is relevant, it's where you're selling. So if you're selling into Ireland, as many UK and US and other countries' businesses do, then it will affect you, or any EU market, obviously. If you're selling into any of them, then this does apply to you. Consumers too, you might be interested because, we've had other laws in the past, things like GDPR from Europe, or the requirement for USB-C charging on things like smartphones. So that kind of stuff has come from the EU, but people outside the EU have also then seen those effects as companies decide to harmonize their response as well, or their approach. So I do think people outside the EU will be seeing the effects of the European Accessibility Act, but technically it just applies to companies who are selling into EU markets. So what are some of the areas where it is in effect? So we've got products, things like computers, tablets, smartphones, and their operating systems, their software, that is in scope. Self-service payment terminals, so these are things like chip and pin machines and card readers. Self-service terminals, like ATMs and ticketing machines as well. Interactive self-service terminals as well. So things like information screens, that kind of thing. Some are not included, things like the boards you might see in airports, I believe. Those kind of things aren't, but if it's a terminal that you go to, it can be in scope. Equipment that's used to access electronic communication services. So that's a very long-winded way of saying things like broadband routers and modems, that kind of equipment is in scope as well. Equipment used to access audio-visual services. That's things like your smart televisions, set-top boxes, streaming devices, that kind of thing, as well as the software that is running on those. E-readers are covered as well. And then on the services side, the e-books themselves and the software running on those e-readers is covered. And as I said, things like the operating systems running on various other devices that we covered under the products section. And also e-commerce services, which is, again, in the way of saying things like websites and apps are all covered there as well. So anywhere you're doing business online with people on a website, in an app, that has to meet certain accessibility standards. Okay, so there are some restrictions as well, or some exemptions. If you're running a small business, you may be wondering again how this applies to you. There are businesses which have under 10 employees and have an annual revenue lower than €2 million. They are not required to meet the requirements of the EAA. You may wish to, and it can be a good idea, of course. As I said, it's always good to be accessible and maximize your market, but you are not liable under the EAA if you are a business of that size, a small business, at least at this time. And then there's certain exemptions around, say, hardware. If you've already manufactured a lot of hardware, there's stuff that's already out on the market or has already been manufactured and ready to go to market, then that can be exempt. There are certain exemptions in different countries as well. So here in Ireland, for example, I know there are certain exemptions around those kind of in-store payment terminals or other interactive terminals. So yeah, different countries will have various different exemptions as well. And then there are some areas such as those kind of more hardware focused things where perhaps an extra 5 years has been added on in certain cases. So if those kind of things apply, then it's worth having a look a little further into whether an exemption applies. But it will apply to future things. So you may come across terminals that are not accessible today, but the next generation would have to be accessible, even if today's generation isn't covered. What happens if a business doesn't apply as well is obviously good to know. So it varies country to country. This was an EU level directive, but it was transposed into law in each of the 27 member states with a certain amount of ability to apply as they see fit, as each member state sees fit. Typically, it is things like fines. It can be suspension of licenses to trade or the allowance of products to be on the market. They could be revoked as well. And even criminal charges as well. For example, here in Ireland, I believe the maximum fine is €60,000. But then there are also, like I say, things like you could be the right to sell a particular product could be suspended, and criminal charges can even involve prison sentences for senior directors in extreme circumstances. I'm not a legal professional, so I won't speculate on what would be required for that to apply, but there are serious consequences. And of course, there's also reputational damage, as with anything. If legal cases are being taken or complaints are being received, then that can have reputational damage as well. And the reverse of that, they're the consequences, but as I say, the benefits are, having a bigger customer base. Ultimately, I always think it's good reputationally to do things right from an accessibility point of view, but it's also good economically because you've got more customers that you can sell to. So I would always say take the positive from a law like this. It's not about do it or else, but here's a set of guidelines to help you be a more accessible business. That would be my thinking on it. But also as a consumer, you know your rights as well, and that's really, really important. And that if you are having challenges with a business or with a product or a service, that you have something that you can go to now and really, demonstrate why and how they need to do better for you as a customer. How do you complain if you are a consumer? This again is going to vary country to country. It's going to vary industry to industry, product to product. So there are, I would always say the first protocol, if you have any challenges, is to go to the company first. That's always been the case, and I think remains the case. But if you are having to escalate beyond that company, if you're not getting satisfactory improvements or responses, there are different agencies in each country that have been assigned the rights or the responsibility, for enforcement and oversight of European Accessibility Act. For example, here in Ireland, the CPCC, the Consumer Competition Protection Commission, they have been given overall oversight of the EAA, but then in terms of enforcing compliance, there are particular sectors like ebooks and things like that where they have responsibility, and I think some of the audiovisual pieces, but then some of that also falls to other agencies. So, for example, some of the audiovisual, falls under the Commission Naman, the Media Commission. You have, airlines and things like that would fall under the Irish Aviation Authority. If you have issues with public transport, it's going to be the National Transport Agency, NTA, or telecommunications will be Comreg. So it's going to vary depending on what it is, but there are, a range of different agencies involved. But I think the CPCC, as the overall overseer of the EAA for Ireland, is a really good place to start. So they have a lot of information on their website, ccpc.ie, and have a look at their website. I'll put a link in the notes under this video as well. Have a look at their website. Whether you're a consumer or a business, it's a really good place to start and get some more information about the European Accessibility Act. So that'd be a good place to start, I think. And really that is it. If you have any questions, please do drop them in the comments. But I'm not, as I said, a legal expert, but I do work in the accessibility area, and I am visually impaired myself. So, steeped in the importance of this Accessibility Act, I think it's a really good move by the EU. I am really glad to see it come into force now. I think it will take some businesses some time to get up to speed, but it's really about, for the businesses, showing that they have processes in place, that they are considering accessibility now going forward as they produce new products and services. So do go check out the CPCC and other online resources that you may find. And I hope we all see that this leads to a more accessible market for all of us, and that's what it's all about. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.